Hey, rockers and sick boys and oi boys and punk rockers. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Saturday night, man. And before I get into this tale, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, man, please consider doing that and helping an old rocker out. Also, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Just, like the video and leave a comment if you want. Thanks in advance. Gonna go back, man, to a day where like a lost 3 days, like a lost weekend, a mini tour with two of my favorite punk rock bands of all time, The Exploited from Scotland and 1096 from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Shout out to 1096 drummer Mooney, who's a viewer of this here channel, and I know he's gonna check this out. Wish I would have called you, man. I actually tried to call you Mooney before I did this video, but I'm just going to go for it. And if anyone can fill in the blanks with some of the story, please leave comments below because, I have a hard time remembering like what year it was. It was probably the mid to late 80s. I think more the late 80s. Could have been real early 90s, but I think it was the late 80s. It's not really too relevant, although it would be nice for history's sake if I remembered this stuff. Somebody recently sent me some information, but I can't find it on my damn phone. So go ahead, fill in the blanks, man. If you know where these gigs took place, if you know what year, leave it in the comments below. 1096 from Kenosha, Wisconsin was one of the best, very best hardcore punk rock bands of all time. You can find their only album. It's called No Retreat on YouTube. It is a masterpiece, just a masterpiece. Rest in peace to Dean Dirt, the singer of the 1096 Boys. One of my best mates in the world, and he's gone, but his memory and music still live. And The Exploited with Wattie, still going today, man. And for those of you that are fans of The Exploited, can you believe the longevity of Wattie? Like, dude, he's out there still doing it. I got a little bonus story before I get into my tale. The bonus story is my daughter Audrey was recently up in Portland, and, well, she decided to go see The Exploited because I've always talked about The Exploited. She wanted to represent, right? So she goes to the show with some Exploited vinyls and I'm sorry, that's not a word. Exploited vinyl records. Well, I was just talking about vinyls not being a word yesterday with somebody. Chance Rush, maybe? I don't remember. Anyway, she takes Troops of Tomorrow and a couple other Exploited records. Wattie is out back or something. He starts signing the records. Well, she's got me on the phone. And she's like, wow, I'm standing right here next to Wattie. And then right then, as Wattie's signing her records for her, and being super cool to her, by the way, she puts him on the phone with me. And having known him earlier on in the 80s, it was bizarre because he's like, hey, bloody, how you doing, mate? In that total Scottish accent, that brogue that Wattie has and has always had. And, it's hard to understand sometimes. But he got on the phone, no problem, starts saying hi to me, asking me how I'm doing, just a real short chat. And then he's off, off and running to do his gig in Portland, Oregon. So that was pretty cool that Wattie would do that, just jump on the phone and say hi to an old friend. So back to the late 80s, or was it early 90s? I think late 80s. So it's 1096. They're good friends of mine. I'm up there like a lot. Kenosha, Wisconsin being like a second home to me. Dean Dirt on the vocals, Joe Prestrel on guitar, Mooney on the drums, and I can't remember if it was Randy Rude on bass or one of the others. They had a couple other bass players. Could have been Kenneth, could have been Jay. Anyway, and The Exploited was rocking. Wattie had his big red mohawk at the time. Well, The Exploited invited 1096 to open for them on like a 3-date little mini tour. I believe one of the dates was in Milwaukee. I believe one of the dates was in the Chicago area. And I think there was a third one maybe in Kenosha or Racine, Wisconsin. Again, if you can fill in the blanks about some of this stuff, put them in the comments. It'll make great conversation, man. So Dean Dirt, one of my best mates in the world, again, rest in peace, calls me and says, bloody, do you want to go on tour with us, man? I go, what do you mean? He goes, we're going on tour with The Exploited. You could just come in the van with us and hang out for like 3 days and let's party. And I'm like, are you kidding, man? I'd love to go on tour with The Exploited. So yeah, man, I made my way to Kenosha from Peoria, Illinois. It's about a 4.5-hour cruise. And I was excited, of course. And I was staying over at Dean's house. And the tour kicked off, right? Next thing you know, we're in a van. I got to watch the guys rehearse the night before. 1096, even in rehearsal, were one of the most intense punk rock bands of all time. just loved their album and all their songs, like Wake Up and, Child Abuse. And so many great songs by those guys. Next thing you know, we're in the van and we're going to go hit the road with the Exploited. We get to the first gig, wherever the hell it was at. We were consuming a lot of alcohol. We had a big couple of coolers in the van, I believe. And we were drinking like fish. And those boys in Wisconsin, got to give it to them, man. They can drink like fish. And I was a big drinker too, big time. And so we started drinking early. So a lot of these memories are, vague. But we're in the first gig and get to meet the Exploited guys. I can't for the life of me remember who was in the band. I don't know if Carl was in the band on guitar, Carl Morris or not. I can't remember. It might have been actually, but I don't remember. I don't think so. I think that was later on, like when they did the horror epics era. Anyway, Wattie was on vocals, I can tell you that much. And it was intense being around Wattie because he was in his own little kind of world with his band and with carrying the punk rock torch. And he was loved and hated by a lot of people. Wattie's one of those very controversial figures in punk rock. And even doing a video like this about him can actually get some people to go, I'm not supporting this channel. It's like, really? The Exploited are a great punk rock band, man, and there's all these different claims that have been talked about over the years about Wattie and things that were said and weren't said and things to do with all kinds of politically correct, things. And I've done my deep dives on Wattie, deep dives, and there's nothing linking him to racism or any of the things that these people talk about and have these knee-jerk reactions about. I've been a fan of this guy since the mid-'80s, and I've interviewed his band, seen the Exploited over the years, love them, and I, to this day, support what Wattie does. He does carry the punk rock torch, and like he says, punk's not dead. So, we're on the tour. It's fun. The first gig, I believe, might have been in Racine, Wisconsin, but it was just packed, man. People were freaking just packed. Lots of skinheads, a lot of oi boys, a lot of punk rockers, a lot of Mohawks back then. And it was really cool being in the crowd. I thought I was going to be right up front because I'm on tour with the boys, right? Well, I didn't get up front. It was so packed that I found myself towards the back at that first gig, wherever the hell it was at. And I just remember so many people jumping up on stage and stage diving. It was a complete circus, man. Massive controlled chaos. It was just such a good time back then with the chaos. I loved it, loved disorder, loved the whole resistance thing to authority and police and just getting rowdy and drinking and just having a damn good time. And I'm still all about having a damn good time. It's just harder these days because, well, life sucks. No, I'm just kidding, man. Joking. Okay, halfway. So the first gig was killer, man. 1096 comes out. They got everybody going completely apeshit. Dean's one of the most intense frontman ever. His eyes bugging out of his head, sweat pouring out of his skin head. He's representing punk rock, carrying the torch as bit as much as Wattie. And he did fanzines, and Dean Dirt was the epitome of like your punk rock guy. If he would have been alive still, he'd be the exact same, just like Wattie, man. Just real, completely genuine, and very intense. Dean would climb the rafters and climb the ceilings and get on top of amps, and he was known for picking up PA boards and throwing them in the audience during his own shows, and really crazy stuff, man. But he was killer opening for the Exploited. They were very professional. Mooney was badass on the drums, one of the best punk rock drummers ever. Moon, you rock! And I'm not just blowing smoke up your Kenosha, Wisconsin cheese-eating, beer-drinking ass. Haha, kidding, man. Anyway, I'm not kidding. Rock on, brother. So the first show was killer. The Exploited come out. They do all the stuff that I want to hear off Troops of Tomorrow and all the earlier stuff. Just fantastic watching Wattie on stage, going back and forth, spitting a lot on stage, cussing a lot, ripping on people like Jello Biafra and Pusshead. He has a legendary rift with those guys. And, it's just funny to watch it happen. And he's all serious about it. And, hey, Wattie, if you're watching this, nothing but respect, brother. So, yeah, the Exploited come out and they're doing all the great tunes. All the people are just going ape shit, like I said. Lots of slam dancing, lots of thrashing everywhere, people pushing into you no matter where you're at. The Exploited always have real rowdy crowds. There's another story on this channel about a skinhead encounter in Chicago that I had that was pretty scary. Kind of like a fight. I was taken over by skinheads at a UK Subs and Exploited show. And you can find that under the video section of this channel. And lots more stories about 1096 on this channel as well. So we get to the second gig, and actually before that gig, there was an autograph in-store thing happening. So like the band was going to be behind the counter at the record store, you know, all the guys in the band and 1096, and they were going to be signing copies of their records. So Dean tells me, Bloody, get over here. And he brings me behind the counter, and I get back, you know, at the very end of the counter. When you walk in the front door of the record store, there was this big counter. The first person you'd see is Wattie sitting there, and then his band members after that. And then after that, Dean Dirt and the boys from 1096. And then I was at the end. I was like thinking to myself, this is so funny. I'm at an autograph in-store appearance with the Exploited, 1096, and then there's me, Bloody F Mess. At the time, I think I was singing for the band Hate. If not, I was probably singing for the Scabs, Bloody Mess and the Scabs. I don't remember the year. So anyway, the autograph in-store was awesome. All kinds of kids came, man. They were representing punk rock. They were there to see their heroes. And Dean Dirt and his boys had a lot of fans there that loved, you know, 1096 in Wisconsin. And then the Exploited, of course, had a huge throng of fans that were there coming in the record store, meeting the guys, taking photos. You know, Wattie was super cool to all the fans. He was a cool guy to be around, but a little hard to get to know. He's got like a, you know, a kind of a barrier around himself. And I respect that, though, man. He's always been true to punk rock, true to what he believes in, just anti-BS with the government systems, right? And not just America, but the UK, Canada. Anyway, yeah, he gets political and he gets hardcore, but I don't get political on this channel. So we'll leave it at that, man. I'm not saying I represent any political belief or system. As a matter of fact, I believe I stand outside of all those systems and beliefs, and division tactics don't work here. So anyway, we do the in-store. It was really cool. A couple people actually asked me for my autograph, and I thought that was pretty sweet. Because I didn't expect that at all. But there was people going, what are you doing? It's the Exploited in 1096. Bloody, what a trip. I've seen your band, that kind of thing. Or I have your records. So anyway, vague. We do the next show, and I believe it was in the Chicago area. I don't remember. It might have been Milwaukee. Very fuzzy. I just remember we got completely wasted. I remember being blacked out drunk and then coming down from that buzz and being in a bar. And we're walking around this small little bar after the gig, and all of a sudden all the hard alcohol had worn off because we were drinking hard alcohol mixed with beer, lack of sleep, you know, for days and stuff like that, smoking a ton of weed. And we're standing in the bar, one of the funniest memories I have of Wattie. This is genius and a classic. Dean Dirt comes up to me in the bar. There's like maybe 20, 30 people in this little bar. It's kind of spread out a little bit. It's very dark. There's a big dartboard on the wall. There's a pool table. There's a bar in the other room. We're back kind of in the dark little area by ourselves. Just the Exploited and 1096 and little old me. I don't even remember there being any fans there. I think we went somewhere and kind of went without anybody telling anyone, because I don't think they wanted like a million people following him around, and they just wanted to party. And those boys could drink, man. And of course, Wattie was notorious for using methamphetamine. He was a hardcore meth user, man. Speed freak, kind of like Lemmy from Motorhead was. But I ain't judging. I'm just telling you the facts, ma'am, sir, and in-betweens. Just telling you the facts. And I don't really care that he was doing that. That was his trip. So we're in the bar, and I'm just sitting around getting a beer at this point. I've got a beer. And I was walking around, and Dean Dirt goes, Bloody, come here. And he's all laughing. And Dean was just a funny guy. Very funny. He can make you laugh your ass off. And he always found things that were absurd and crazy and weird. And he just had a way about him, man. A real magnetism and just a real weird energy of like a mixture between an insane madman and a freaking genius and a shaman, maybe. A lot of people say that about Dean, though. He was a teacher, but he could also be a big asshole. And a lot of people told me, if you lived up in Kenosha, you'd hate Dean. And I used to say, well, I don't. And I don't live in Kenosha, so I love Dean. And I accept him for all his craziness, because he was crazy, you know. But he was the first to admit it, you know. 1096 actually stands for mental subject in police code. Yep, we got us a 1096 here. Anyway, the band was all certifiably nuts. Come on, man. Mooney, am I lying? Nope. Everyone was nuts in that band, man. And I guess I'm not exactly a poster boy for sanity. And then you got the Exploited. Nothing, no disrespect intended. But we're drinking like fish. I come down from the hard alcohol. Dean calls me over, Bloody. And then all of a sudden, he goes, look at Wattie, man. Look at him. Look. And I look over at Wattie, and he is simultaneously playing a game of darts with one guy, playing a game of pool with another, and having a freaking conversation with yet another person, just jacked out of his gourd on speed, man. Dean's like, look at him, man. He's like, unbelievable. And we were like watching him go back and forth and not even aware that we're watching him, just completely high as a kite. It was one of the funniest things in punk rock I'd ever witnessed, man. Wattie just bug-eyed, and his big mohawk, and, you know, the whole Scottish crew of super punk rock street dudes, you know. And the next gig that next night, it was a big blur, of course, but I do remember 1096 killing it again. I do remember being more up front for that one, and I was just amazed at the energy those guys put out, man. It was just an insane amount of energy. I think their set was usually 15 minutes to 30-minute sets, 20, 30 minutes. But man, when they were done, it was so cathartic. Like you felt like you kind of worked out and you went to the gym and maybe saw a shrink at the same time. You just were like, woo! Dean Dirt, man, what a guy. 1096, what a band. The Exploited, unbelievably killer, man. Those gigs were just great. Some of the best moments of my life. Wattie and company came out, and those guys they always captivate. The audiences get like 10 times crazier when they hit the stage. Just a real intense energy, man. I remember some fights were breaking out at that show. Security having to break them up, and I wasn't surprised. But you know, I never saw those guys act violent or utter anything racist or anything not even really politically incorrect, to be honest. There's times where me and Dean Dirt had dark senses of humor, and we'd get up to things that people would find questionable today probably, but it's ridiculous. You know, you got to take life with a grain of salt, man, and you got to have a sense of humor in this freaking world, man, you know? And I remember when that little mini tour was over, man, I was so freaking exhausted. I didn't do any speed, man. I was just drinking a lot of alcohol with them boys and having a good time. The Kenosha Boot Boys, 1096, and the legendary Exploited from Scotland. Hope you guys dig my stories. Hope I didn't ramble too much. Hope this wasn't boring as all get out. Please leave a comment if you want. I'm going to be back soon with more punk rock, metal, curveball, and just plain stupid stuff from my life. Hey, man, have a good rest of your weekend. Cheers. Long live the Exploited. Punk's not dead.